So I want to especially say I'm super thankful for Senator Weiss, someone Penterman, and Spike to be here today because they are great advocates for the work that we do in this department. And I know that when folks need services, when we need help getting the word out about different processes, they've been great collaborators in that front. So I'm glad they're here today. It's an exciting time for us at the Department of Labor, for our businesses and for young workers across the state. We're here to unveil a new, modern way for teen workers to get their working papers and for employers to advertise they have opportunities available to them, more importantly. We want to come to Newark, not only because it's one of our greatest cities in New Jersey, but because no other city in New Jersey that's more representative of our state's multi-talented and diverse workforce. It's a hub for healthcare, transportation, arts, entertainment, manufacturing, amazing restaurants in the city, and so much more. And our youth workers and their employers have been seeing a few changes recently. Last July, thanks on behalf of the folks at the table over here, and Governor Murphy signed legislation that extended hours for some minors to work while school is out of session, effective immediately last summer. In addition to that portion of that law, shift the responsibility of working papers from the Department of Education to the Department of Labor in our department. So we're absorbing the work of 600 plus school districts around the state and centralizing into one hub, Myworkingpapers.nj.gov, which will make the process easier across the board. We see a steady stream of applicants for working papers year-round, with a surge around late spring and early summer as school lets out and summer employment begins, which is very soon. In total, about 130,000 applications for working papers are received annually. With the old way of doing working papers, each young worker would need to see their school administrator to get a paper application, then physically go to their prospective employer and their caregiver for further documentation and approvals. I'm going through that process right now. My son, even though he has a car and plenty of time, getting all this done has been apparently a challenge for him. With this new system, it happens in one place, so we can easily track where the application is in the process. Right now, we have more than 74,000 workers in the state who are 16 to 17 years old, with that number to spike in the coming weeks, obviously. Young workers are most commonly found in the fast food industry, restaurants, grocery stores, retail, and seasonal jobs. These jobs not only provide income to support themselves and their families, and also priceless experience to help them build a work ethic and mindset that they'll take with them to a long and healthy career. And with the new Working Papers website, I'll be there to support them every step of the way. I will also give them teens access to a suite of online information and services specifically for them, which is what I'm really excited about as this process, not just a paperwork process or a digital process for us seeing who's working where, but now they can get information about how to write a resume, how to develop interviewing skills, and find a job. These are certainly all services that we have available now at the one-stops across the state, but now every single youth worker is going to have to be on the system. We give us direct access to them to help them find a job, help them help us fill our training pipeline across the state, and help us really manage our talent pipeline. Also, it'll include resources for workers with disabilities, announcements on upcoming job fairs, and the protections and rights minors are entitled to under child labor laws. And again, just having this digital platform is going to make things a lot easier. I see Sam here. You know, really some of the stuff that you guys have been piloting here in Newark and Essex County, I think will be really coming to fruition across the state as well. So starting June 1st, minors employers will go to myworkingpapers.nj.gov to apply for the working papers required for teens to start their jobs. The teen worker and the employer kick off the process by each creating an account. The teen's caregiver will have access to do their part as well. You'll hear more details on the process from Deputy Assistant Commissioner Nick Toth in a couple minutes. But keep in mind what we show you today is a working demo. Even when we go live on June 1st, we'll still be making improvements almost every day. So don't hesitate to check out the site and share your feedback with us so we can make this site the best it can be. And don't worry, all working papers and applications submitted before June 1st will still be valid. No one has to go and re-up their paperwork or turn it into digital work. So today you'll also be hearing from our Wage and Hour Division. To give you a brief refresher on the rules and regulations surrounding young workers, the governor and our legislature, which is so well represented here today, worked hard to ensure teen workers and workers of all ages are treated fairly. We've seen workers and protections and benefits increase in the past 5 years: the higher minimum wage, paid sick days, equal pay, expanded family leave, and these are all contributing to year-over-year employment growth in this state. In those same 5 years, we've seen our businesses continue to flourish, including an impressive 26% increase in New Jersey amongst our smallest employers, those with less than 5 employees. Our private sector has gained back all the jobs lost during the pandemic and then some. And we now have the most people working and the most employers doing business in our state than ever before, with a labor participation rate now that's as high as it's been in more than a decade. It's taken the efforts of everyone in this room to make it happen: our policymakers, our employers, our educators, our workforce development teams, our workers, all banding together and doing our part to ensure this state thrives.
So this will be the landing page for everyone. This will include employers, minors, and caregivers. Nice and fancy, great job, comms. The first step in registering for the minor working paper system prompts you to this screen. As you can see at the top of the screen, there's an option for a minor, an option for an employer. We're going to run through the employer scenario. We're basically getting the basic information that you would assume from this: name of the employer, the job title of the hiring agent, the first name, last name, and email address. This will prompt the registration process. Once you advance there, you'll be asked to include your FEIN number. This is kind of like a business's social security number. This will allow us to track businesses, see what types of industries we're supporting youth work in, and it will also create a unique identifier for the employer that we can look up. Country is self-explanatory, and then we'll ask for the address, street, city, and zip. And then on this next page, pretty important, certainly important to the department. This is an attestation for employers, basically indicating that they're attesting to not violating any existing state law as it relates to children and teens and young workers in the workplace. So we have an attestation here with some information on the statutes that apply to this type of work. So once they check the box and attest to that, they have successfully created their account. They get a screen that says they've successfully created, and then they get an email. So the email, like many forms that all of you have filled out over the years online, when you're setting up an account, will prompt you to set up additional information, which includes your employer business name of the folks that are signing up here. This is already pre-populated based on before. It's just really a verification panel. And then we move to company information. Company email, company name, alternate phone, verifying the street address, and then asking whether the corporate address is the same as the work site. This is an important distinction because if you have large employers, let's say Bristol Myers Squibb, they may have a corporate address, but they may have multiple different sites for different business verticals in their company. And if they click same as yes, nothing will happen. If they click no, they'll just have an opportunity to put the local site in, so we capture that. Moving forward, setting up a password, pretty straightforward. All of us have done that 1,000 times in this tech age, so this should be nothing new for everyone. And then you get a completion. You've now successfully signed up. And you go back into your account, which will take you here. Oh, this is actually really important. So in order to link the minor to the employer, there's a unique identifier that's generated after the employer registers. And this identifier needs to be shared with the minor. For employers that are registering for the first time, this will be the email that they receive. This is, again, like their badge, their social security number for their minor working papers account. So just to put that in plain terms, if you're an employer that's signing up for the first time, you're going to get this number, and you're going to share this with every minor that you intend on bringing into your company to work. This is how we make the connection in the system. Then once we have that, we get prompted that the minor now has to do their part. This presentation is focused on the employer piece, but the minor, after the employer has successfully completed their application and has shared that unique identifier number that I just mentioned, the minor will go in, they'll fill out their name, their address, their occupation, and they're going to put in this number, and that's going to make the connection. Once the minor has done that, the employer will be receiving an action required email from the system. This is all automated, by the way. This doesn't require any human touch. The employer will then go in and they will look onto their account and they will pull up the minor who now submitted for approval. So this is just like before, where we had a paper process, but just online, where the minor is providing information to the employer is verifying it. This would have been done on an old paper form. Now we're doing it online. So the employer will then click on the file for the minor, And I apologize, I feel like I need a telescope to see this stuff. But I'll run through it. This is basically where the employer does their due diligence on the minor. They make sure that this is a correct person, this is a correct name. There's an edit panel up top. This is also very important for the employer. The employer needs to fill in some key information once the link has been made to the minor. If you look at this panel, it's really focused on the basics of the minor, and then let me see if I can read this here. The occupation type, the minor's job title, and the minor's job duties. I'm just going to pause here for a second and say that we never captured any of this data in the past, and this type of information that we're going to be getting from over 100,000 minors throughout the state is going to be one of the most valuable data sets that we will have as a department. Commissioner could probably go on for an hour on a lot of the future thoughts that we have around the applications of this data, but finding where are minors working? What are they doing? If they switch jobs, where are they going? What are their rates? How many hours are they working? This is a really rich data source that we've never had before, and is really going to have a lot of great workforce applications in the future. So once the employer has completed the occupation, job title, job duties, they'll be asked to fill in the worker's hours. As most of us know, certainly our legislators here know, there are limitations on child labor as it relates to the number of hours per day, the number of hours per week that they're allowed. There are also limitations on the types of occupations that individuals are allowed to work in. So this is important, and we've actually built into the system where it will flag if any of those parameters based on current state law are outside of the allowable amount. It will flag that, which will then prompt a review process internally for us. But I think the important thing to note is, again, we are capturing the number of hours, we're capturing wages, and it's a really, really powerful set of data there. Once that information is completed by the employer, Jason, am I frozen here? Thank you. There will be one more attestation. This is basically the employer attesting that they've extended an employment offer to the individual, that they've done an age verification, and that making sure that if the individual is working on a hazardous work site or in a hazardous occupation, that they're noting this here, because again, there are a lot of other restrictions. Obviously, we don't want 13-year-olds working in chemical plants or slicing in a deli or anything of that nature. So these are just attestations for the employer. Once that's complete, we get an approval. Application's been approved by the employer. This is a verification email that goes back to the employer. The minor will also receive a verification email. Moving on to the next step. The following step requires the caregiver to go on to verify that the information of the minor is accurate and to provide proof of age. So we have an enumerated list of items, including birth certificate, insurance policy, state IDs, things of that nature. Those are all enumerated in the site. And then once that part is complete, your mining working papers are complete. So that's pretty much it. It's straightforward. Everything's done online. Everything is mobile enabled for cell phones. We're currently working on getting our site also in readable Spanish to begin with. And in addition to that, we've also built a response team of over 40 people that if anybody calls and they have any questions on getting through the application, they're curious on where they are on the application, we're there to stand by. And we also have a few staff members that will be fluent in Spanish as well if that need were to arise. So I'm going to end there. Last time we did this in Atlantic City, it was pretty interactive. We had a lot of folks asking questions along the way. I'm hoping that I was just as compelling today, but I didn't see any hands, so I'm going to open it up and see if anyone has any initial thoughts on this, questions. Yes?
The physician certification part is that still a part of the process?
That's a great question. So in the current law that was recently signed, there is no longer a physician requirement.
So this is a big step because this isn't just about taking a current process and putting it online. We're also changing the whole policy around what is needed and what is not. So, for example, like the current form, the A300, that'll be in use until June 1st, it asks about physical attributes. It actually asks, do you have any facial marks or something like that? I mean, it's crazy. So we're not just modernizing the process, we're actually modernizing the policy at the same time. So yes, the doctors are taken out of the equation, which I know that they'll be very happy about as well.
Yep.
Is there a time frame that the employer has to complete the application once it started?
Good question. So there's no time frame. Certainly, if they're looking at getting someone in, that's incumbent upon them to get them in and do their part. What I will say, there is a bit of a nuance with the caregiver certification. So based on the current law, after, I believe it's 14 days, if there's a non-response by the caregiver, that application will be by default approved. So that's an important nuance if you're working, especially like Karen, if you're working with folks at the Workforce Development Board and they're saying, well, I can't get my parent to certify this thing, or maybe there's a familial issue that is not allowing them to get someone to approve on their behalf. After 14 days, they'll be good to go and they'll be authorized to work.
Is it a maximum amount of moves that can work at an employer's?
No, not at all.
But to answer the first part, I mean, this is instantaneous. Like basically, if I'm in a youth, I go get good employer, I have an interview, and it goes well, they're going to give me that code they can give me that code on the spot. I can go home or even right there on my phone and get this done. If you have your caregiver ready to go also, you can literally do this all instantaneously. Boom, 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 and be done.
I know a lot of employers, like always, were not very, amenable to working, having minors work for them because of the paperwork process and kind of that whole situation.
Yep.
But I think that, with advertising, this is going to open up a lot of spaces for young people.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Each application that's submitted by a minor, the employer has to fill out one for each minor, or is it just?
Yep, that's right. So if they have multiple minors there may be different work schedules, different occupations, maybe even different pay rates. So that'll be for each individual.
And what is the approval to turnaround time for approval once all three parts of the application are submitted?
So the beautiful part of the system, and actually the part that I'm most proud of, is that if all goes well, the approval is within a minute of all these steps being taken care of. It's fully automated. It doesn't require any human intervention. The only time it requires a human intervention if a hazardous site or hazardous occupation is involved, or if someone has tech issues and has an issue, maybe uploading, they're not sure which document they need to upload, or maybe they're curious on one of the fields that we're requesting from them.
The only built-in, for lack of a better term, delay is getting that caregiver authorization. So if it takes 2 or 3 days, then it'll be done in 3 days. If it takes 2 weeks, they don't answer, then it's going to be approved at that point in time. And just to be clear, for caregivers who are worried about this stuff, if let's just say for whatever reason the kid and the employer aren't letting you know about this, and so the 2 weeks comes and goes and it gets approved automatically, they find out later on and they're not happy about their youth working in this job, they can deny at that point in time, and at that point the work authorization will be taken away.
And that was 14 days, and it will be automatically approved?
Correct.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, that's in the statute, yes.
Yep.
I know you stated earlier in regards to extended hours during the summer. How many hours are you able to work now?
Wage hours here, they're going to give a quick presentation. They'll wait when the questions are done, right? It's 10 hours in the summer, I believe, right? Now?
They can work up to, 50 hours per week and 10 hours.
Right. So that, if you remember, that the bill was ended up being like bifurcated last year to finalize it, and thanks to the business community and all you for helping with that, because the hour stuff wasn't like we couldn't get this going in 2 weeks. We made the hour change last year. That's already in effect. This was in effect June 1st. So 10 hours a day once school is out. Not now, when school is out.
Karen?
For those of us responsible for building the future workforce, the now and future workforce.
Sure, we all are.
We all are. I think that the point that you made about data collection is really critical. Because what it seems we're going to be able to do is identify the career exploration of young people who are in school today and follow their journey to figure out how they're connecting to their passion as they move into a career path. And so that's going to be helpful to us. And I'm just wondering, how is that data going to be shared?
Great question. So right now, we're just focused on getting the system out and collecting it, but we have every intention in sharing it because the whole purpose is to use this as intel to better formulate strategies to support our workforce in the state. So, I would say, you know how to get a hold of me, Karen. I know that. I would say reach out to us in a couple of weeks or months, and we'll start talking about what's coming in. But in my view, I don't want to speak for the commissioner of the department, but in my view, I think that this, in some form or another, should be publicly available.
A couple things on that. Yes, we do have grand plans for a lot of this data within the law, obviously, because even some of the schools are asking, well, can we figure out, and I don't even know if that's allowed right now. I don't know that we're allowed to give to schools who from our system we know is working in this. Now, our goal is to be able to do that. We've got to have some lawyers look at it first. But also, these kids are going to be able to, we'll be able to tell them through these processes, like, okay, you're working as a retail clerk, or you're working as a bank, whatever it is. We're going to say, well, we have data from our own systems, from our wage records. What is the best path for you forward as far as financially, whatever else it may be? What kind of education do you need? What kind of credentials are you already building towards in the work that you're doing now? So it's really going to intertwine well with some of our workers.nj.gov and other work that we're doing about career paths and training transparency in the state already. It's definitely in phase 2, 3, or 4. We want to get this out the door first.
That goes to my question. So the school certification part is no longer required either?
Nope.
The only thing we're asking of schools at this point, and spread it far and wide, is drive traffic to the site.
Yep.
So
So they're going to have so much free time on their hands at the schools now.
we would have happily taken the 600 people or so that were working on this now
at
and have
least.
them support this that labor as well. But thankfully, with the system design, we don't need that.
Would you also be able to provide us some sort of data, not so much on the kids side, but just on kind of like the business and the sectors,
Yep.
small, medium?
Yeah, generalizable. That's for sure public, yes.
That's a better idea too, because if there's some data we also need to do to kind of have some sort of correlation or anything moving forward, that would be good for us to know as well.
Absolutely. And just for in case you didn't know, like right now, these working papers, they come into our office and they go into a filing cabinet somewhere, unless there's an investigation about a child labor issue. So now the fact that we're even using this for this kind of stuff is really, I think we're going to be the only state that's doing this. It's going to be much more dynamic and useful for the minor workers, for our employers, for our state government, for policymakers. That's what we're really thrilled about that aspect of it.
So following up on Karen's comments about watching the transition, I don't know if anywhere on here, but if, for instance, there are in an agency that's offering the apprenticeship stuff, to see if they're tracking into that, and then simultaneously using all the policies that we've implemented together to see how that's working. That would be, if at some point that can be added or tracked, I think that would be beneficial. Plus, because and then when we start looking at revamping programs, to give bonus points to those entities that are doing that in those fields, like the bigger companies and the corporations. For the city side, just a thought to mull over. Our students are underperforming in our school districts horrendously. And oftentimes what I hear is that even though there might be mandated summer programs that will bring up their academic success, they want to go work. There should be some consideration about if the child needs to go to school, that we'll give them a stipend somehow during that time frame and figure out a way to weave all these processes together. I certainly don't want to keep someone who's helping support the family or themselves or empowering themselves individually, but for me, school has to come first, because so if there could be a collective space in there where we have a conversation about how to, especially the summer youth employment program, because I heard this a couple years back, right after the pandemic when we did the summer support programs, the high school kids bounced out because so many people were hiring and they didn't go to the academic enrichment programs.
Well, if I may just piggyback off that, we are having conversations with Newark Public Schools now about the populations who are in CTE programming, all of the vocational programming that's coming back robustly to high schools. And many of those students will be part of our this year summer youth employment program, doing work experience that also gives them academic credit. So they'll be paid to go to those CTE connected work experiences. And why this is a great connection for us, following them from that kind of programming into a potential apprenticeship opportunity This will facilitate that. So a good example is at Barringer High School, their CTE students, 20 of them will be in summer youth employment doing carpentry.
Right.
Learning carpentry, a year-round program for sophomores, juniors, and seniors at Barringer. They'll get 6 weeks of connection to work sites and work experience working with their same instructors over the summer. And they're also going to be connected with, union tradesmen and women who will talk to them about career pathways in those programs. Some of them, after 2 years, as they're graduating from high school, will have an opportunity to go directly into a carpentry apprenticeship program. And we're already tracking that. A program that we started last summer will extend into this summer and into the year-round programming that they're doing. And all of those are paid experiences for those students.
But the other thing, to be honest with you, the problem though, to me, is not enough. So, like Karen says, 20, right? So we've been doing enrichment programs in the city of Newark pretty much since Mayor Barack has been the mayor. This year alone, we got 500 kids that's going to be going to Berkeley College that are going to be doing enrichment programs where they'll be paid to get a skill. But the reality of the matter is there has to be a conversation with the educational system. We did a paper talking about our experiences based on what we see with workforce, especially with the kids. And we've submitted that paper to the Board of Education. And I had a conversation with the State Board of Education about this in reference to, the way we need to rethink, especially high school education, right? And offering more kids an opportunity and get away from this alternative education conversation and just talking about kids going into careers and being educated in those careers. I think we put this tag on alternative education. If a kid don't go to college, we run this gamut that, well, you can do this alternative route. It almost puts them in a second-class citizen type of, conversation. And we try to get away from that conversation and talk about, this alternative method. If I want to be a lawyer and not a doctor, you don't say, well, you're going to be an alternative
Right.
lawyer. You know what I'm
I
saying?
think,
So if I want to be a
and I don't want to dominate this between
Yeah.
just us, but I think we should probably have a follow-up.
Yeah.
I think at the state level, we've pivoted away from that, really bringing up the vocational system up again, talking about, I always have the conversation from womb to New Jersey taxpayer. Our job is not done until that happens. So there's pathways for the vocational system. I'm concerned about the 9th grader who potentially wants to work, right, in the summer, they've already gotten letters to the House, is being mandated to attend a summer program, but mandated is between quotations. They're reading perhaps at a 5th grade level, but now they can also go work somewhere else. I'm saying let's give them the stipend for work to attend the enrichment program so that when they come back as sophomores, they're better prepared.
We've been doing that with,
So-
I don't know if it's recent any, but we've been doing that with the enrichment class with our programs throughout high school. So we've been doing that.
It makes me think about, we often talk about trying to get rid of the binary choice after high school graduates of a job or college.
Right.
In that summer.
They just fully prepared
Right,
to do whatever.
and maybe, we have prior learning assessments and, and even now with NJ, not NJ Place, NJ Place, workers are getting college credit for the work they're doing. Maybe for some courses, if kids are behind in some course, they can get a job that's specifically tailored to math, right? And they're going to job every day that somehow involves math. Maybe there's an online component somehow. So I think this platform really opens up a ton of possibilities for all these different factors.
But we have to tailor these kids' educational path to what their interests are. And that's not being done in these high schools. The majority are not going to college or even signing up for college. And the problem is that a lot of them, once they come into our office after they graduate with a high school diploma that said they should be at a certain level, when we take them to get employment and they start mandating tests that we find that a lot of them can't, pass those tests. So I agree with you, that we have to have a bigger conversation around trying to redirect the way this educational system teaches, or think about other ways where we can try to maximize these youth interests.
Any questions about the working papers process? Go ahead. Yeah, please ask. No. I love it. I think it's giving us great ideas.
I'm the person that's responsible for completing the work. So I'm in the system. I work for the capital time.
Yeah.
We're doing a summer program. Can I go in and create this account for myself, or do I need
If you're the
HR person?
if you're the employer, you can create it for yourself. I don't know if you, Nick. I know we've had some questions about who in the business sets up the account.
So if I understand your question, when you say that I'm responsible for filling these out,
Yeah.
responsible in terms of what are you?
Meaning completed it, saying what their position is, what their hours are, what the rates are.
And you're and this is based on you're in the capacity of the employer, is that what you're saying? Yes, so you'll be responsible for verifying the information that they provide and inputting the information required. But with respect to, just expediency, having a direct line of communication with the minor that you intend on hiring is key. Make sure they do their part once you've done your part. And also following up to make sure that their caregiver's done their part. So I think that's really where employers could be most helpful is just kind of helping to shepherd along the process. We've tested this so many times, and if everyone is on the same page, this can be done in 10 or 15 minutes, tops. And that's a conservative estimate. That's like taking breaks and pauses in between. But these forms aren't rocket science. But I think we're anticipating where snags will be hit is if someone drops the ball, if the caregiver drops the ball, if the minor drops the ball. That's where you're going to see a delay in these things getting over the finish line.
Well, I think with the position requirement and the school certification removal, it definitely should because
Absolutely. Imagine having to handhold a paper form
I had
everywhere.
that I had needed. Some people that needed working papers for. I only had 200 slots, and some people got waitlisted because their working papers, like they submitted everything they needed to me, but your working papers weren't complete, so I can't.
That's a great testimonial because hearing this, we're already seeing this is just another example why the logic of doing this online makes so much sense.
One more question.
Okay, so-
Is it the employer responsibility just to go in there one time, they don't have to go in there separate times?
For each child,
Right.
right?
Yes. So there's two layers here. One is the initial registration. You only have to do that once. So that could be one time in 20 years. But for each minor that you're bringing on, you're going to have to go in, verify the information, verifying their work hours, verifying the work site. That'll be, just as if you look back at the paper process, you'd still have to provide that information on a paper form. You got to do the same thing just online.
So would the employer receive like an email, or would they continue to receive alerts if they don't complete it, I guess like in a timely fashion, so that you can work? Oftentimes employees get, bogged down with work.
Absolutely.
Not, finishing the paperwork, so I just want to make sure it's like an alert or several emails that's sent to make sure that the employee finished their part.
That's a very good point, and I don't want to speak and not give you a guaranteed answer. I'm pretty sure that we budgeted in sort of like resend emails once the process has begun to provide for those reminders.
Nudges.
But what's that?
They call them nudges in the
Nudges.
business.
Yeah, there you go. But also we're working on, and we're hoping that it'll be ready by June 1, but if not, it'll be ready shortly after, is SMS capability as well. So when telephone numbers are provided, we're going to be sending updates via SMS as well. But you raise a very good point. I think all of us know what it's like to have a full inbox and sifting through emails. So.
Also, by the way, Senator before mentioned about how, giving points for some of these businesses. Also, I think here about people who apply for a job and get told something, and then they get ghosted, and that goes both ways. Maybe we could figure out a way. If we could see from the system, if some employers out there giving out their code to a bunch of people, but only hiring 1 or 2 out of a dozen, that's some kind of problem also. In the back, I'm sorry, if you introduce yourself. You weren't here for the introductions. No, we're behind you. I'm sorry.
Yes, I'm Haley. I'm HR manager for the Greater Somerset County YMCA. So we have
Great.
a ton of locations, hiring camp and lifeguards and all these minors. So how many people from the employer side could have an account? Because in HR, I'm doing this a lot, but also people hiring, our hiring managers are doing it. So how many accounts could we have?
Yes, so this is a great question, and certainly one that we had a lot of deliberation over when we were designing the system. Based on the current system design, you can have unlimited accounts. The way that we're connecting that is through your FEIN, because if it's one corporate entity, you're going to have one FEIN. But if you have multiple job sites, if you have multiple hiring managers, we wanted to account for that. So it's up to your organization or your business if they want to designate one person for the entire organization, or if they want to give every hiring manager in a more decentralized system the opportunity to have their own account. I think you had a question as well, sir.
Yes, with your official launch being June 1st, is it open now though for employers to register? Or is it everything will be launched on June 1st and employers can sit there?
Everything June 1st. Yep. Also a good question. I think we got that one in Atlantic City. We just want to... June 1 is going to be a big day. There's no doubt about that. But the beauty is that with the registration process for employers, you only got to do it once. So this will be the transition period. Yep.
But the website is live now. There will be some resources before then, including a toolkit that will give you some instructions on how to register.
So they can visit now just to see some...
In a couple days.
Okay.
Good. If we can get a quick overview from our colleague from WageOff, introduce yourself and give us a quick little rundown of what kids and minor workers can and cannot do.
Yes, hi, I'm Amy Marshall. I'm district supervisor with the, thank you. Oh my God, where am I? Workforce Development. And just to give you an overview of the changes last year, minors are able to work continuously for 6 hours as opposed to 5 hours before a full 30-minute break. But the employer has to ensure that they're clocking in and out for those breaks. From the last day of school up until Labor Day. So that's just 16 and 17-year-olds that could work 10-hour days and up to 50 hours per week. For the ages of 12 through 15, the minors cannot work no more than 18 hours per week, 3 hours per day on school days, and no more than 8 hours per day on Saturday or Sunday, and no more than 6 consecutive days in a work week. They cannot work before 7 a.m. or 7 p.m., and these requirements stay the same during school vacation and summer break. And there's a list on the NewJersey.gov website with regards to the type of permitted occupations. For 12 through 15-year-olds, they could work in all branches of farming, gardening, nursing, raising livestock, and theatrical productions. When it comes to the 16 and 17-year-olds, they have a little bit more leeway. They cannot work, though, more than 40 hours per week, no more than 8 hours per day, and 6 consecutive days in a work week. They cannot work before 6 a.m. or after 11 p.m., not before 6 a.m. or after midnight on Fridays and Saturdays or days not followed by a school day, as well as summer break. So not before 6 a.m. and after 3 a.m. in a restaurant and seasonal amusements. I know that's a very popular job for them. But the minor, if they do work past 11 p.m., there is a parent permission that should be provided. And as far as the permitted occupations for 16 and 17-year-olds, they could work as far as all aspects of clerical, office, restaurants, amusement parks, and things of that nature. But they're all listed on the website. Any questions?
Okay, thank you, Amy. That was great. Put that back. Well, thank you for everybody coming today. We're always available for any more questions or anything else, any services, so feel free to stick around. Otherwise, we'll see you soon.